All right. Hi. Hi, everyone. I just want to double check that it's coming through. Welcome. Just want to make sure we're all here. Great. Okay. I just wanted to make sure. So, thank you for coming. We have a lot more people on Zoom today than last time. Well, my name is Danny Neifert, and I am the creator of Skin Harmonics. And I've spent, wow, somewhere around 20 years helping skin and just trying to understand skin. And so, what we're going to do today is break down our this topic of skin hydration. Now, this is the biggest issue that I see with skin across the board. No matter who I'm seeing, this is the first thing that has to be corrected when I start working with clients. And so, what we're going to do is I'm going to break down the strategy for how to get hydrated skin, and then I'm going to open the floor up for some questions. So, and then if you hang out even longer, I have a coupon code. Every new client will get 20% off if you can join up for my newsletter and also sign up for my book. But for existing people, if you hang in there, I will give a coupon code. So just to dive right on in, like I had mentioned before, dehydrated skin is the biggest issue that I see with skin across the board. And this is for a lot of different reasons. And the first one we'll start with, the first important thing to start doing with your skin is preparing your skin to hold water. And so this is what I call priming our skin. And this has everything to do with using a warm water, not hot water, and splashing your skin over the sink or in the shower with warm water. And this is just like softening your skin, just kind of getting it ready to receive really good water that we're going to give it. And so this priming of our skin, of it getting it really soft and using steam in the shower or over the sink. And this means not necessarily using a cleanser in the morning, because a lot of over cleansing is very dehydrating for our skin. But even if you're not going to use a cleanser, it's still really important that you hit this first step and you're preparing your skin. So you're splashing your skin with warm water. And then the next thing that you're going to do is you're going to dry your skin really, really well with a dry, fluffy towel. And you're going to take all of that bath water off of your skin. And then you're going to mist it with a high quality water. And this could just mean spring water. This doesn't have to mean a fancy water or even a rose water. It just means a really high quality mineral rich water. And this excludes a toner. So toners are things that are very astringent for the skin. They're like tea tree, witch hazel, lavender is, believe it or not, a little too dehydrating for the skin. So just plain water is better than any toner. And then you're going to mist your skin with that, because it's all about giving your skin that water. And then the missing piece for a lot of people is using a hydrating serum. And so a hydrating serum is something, it has this component of what I call hydrophilicness to it. So it loves water. It's an aloe vera gel or a hyaluronic. It's something that actually holds onto water and creates what I call a water puff cloud, because it's not enough just to prepare your skin and give it the water. We need to do this extra step of magnifying that water and maximizing that little water puff cloud that we're going to, and the next step, strategically trap underneath a moisturizer. And this is the part that's really important to understand, because most people are not using a moisturizer that's heavy enough. And this brings up a bigger topic of clogging our pores. There's a lot of misinformation out there that heavy moisturizers clog our pores and that certain ingredients will clog our pores. And it's just not true. So I made a really radical moisturizer years ago. Face butter became quite famous in some circles, and it's this really thick, lipid-rich moisturizer, and it was pretty radical because it really had that weight to it that trapped water in the skin, because without that lipid barrier, all of the water that you've just prepared for your skin and you've given your skin just starts evaporating. It's useless without this layer of oil that goes on top of it to trap it in. And that's the strategy. The full strategy of having optimally hydrated skin is keeping that water there. I do have a new product out called Lamina, and it's even way more radical than my previous product, the face butter. And it is designed specifically to create this really rich barrier to trap that water in and prevent it from evaporating. And so some of the things that I've heard over the years is like, oh, I don't like that feeling of having that residue or that oily or that heaviness on my skin. And what I have to say to that is you can choose how thick you have that barrier. You can experiment with the amount of moisturizer. But it's really vital to make friends with that barrier that's in place and that little bit of residue that a heavy moisturizer leaves. Now, it can be really, really thick for the evening time, or it can be really, really thin. I have a lot of clients that actually really like that heavy feeling. Because the skin is just so hydrated because of it. And it's this feeling of, it's called barrier restoration. And it's this feeling of equanimity that comes to the skin when it knows that it has enough barrier in place and there's enough oil on the skin. It means that the acid mantle has been constructed perfectly, sufficiently, adequately, and now it can relax. The sebaceous gland doesn't have to go into overdrive and make more oil than it ordinarily would. That's really helpful. It helps our sebaceous gland find its genetic setting and make exactly the amount of oil that it would instead of having to overproduce. So using this method of trapping water in our skin is kind of the formula for hydrated skin. And so there's one final piece I wanted to mention, and it's about sometimes when the top layer of our skin, the epidermis, is always being replaced by our dermal layer. It's constantly being replaced. And the fresher that top layer of skin cells are, the more water that they can hold. And so that's the main reason that we love having an increased cell turnover number or activity, is so that we get that fresh top layer of our skin. It's replaced more often. And so if we can get those skin cells replaced and made by the inspiration of dermal nutrients, then that's even better, because if our skin is having new skin cells that are being made because of trauma, microdermabrasion, chemical peels, laser series, if your skin is making skin cells based on a chemical and a trauma response, that's less ideal than having, in my opinion, than having our skin make new skin cells that are going to hold water based on dermal nutrient absorption and metabolization. So a lot of people, just to review this and then I'll answer any questions, a lot of people want hydrated skin because, I mean, that's kind of the goal, and the whole skin industry is like hydration, hydration, hydration. But then it gets a little confusing because then you run into this like, oh, well, I don't want to clog my pores. And so I have to withhold oil from my skin. And that's where people can get into some trouble. And also just retraining your tactile sense to appreciate a little bit of residue on your skin and recognizing that as what it takes that to actually trap the water in our skin. So those are some of the tricks to actually the main formula for having really hydrated skin, dehydrated skin. And so yeah, we will leave it at there. I'm just going to look for some questions and see if I can answer anything. And if you have any questions, just put them in the chat box on Zoom, or put them on Facebook Live. Okay, this is good. So this is a good question, and this is a question that's specific to my product Lamina. So, which I actually have some here. I might demo that. All right, we'll demo that in a moment. So it is sticky, and it's only sticky initially. So when you're applying it and you get it on top of your skin, on top of the serum that's not too wet but moist, you're pinning your hair back because it is sticky initially. And after 5 or 10 minutes, that stickiness goes away. And there is a product that I sell that it's a silk powder, and you just brush it on, and it's a matte powder, and a lot of different skincare makeup companies sell like a translucent or a setting powder. And so adding just a little dusting of this silk powder can go a long way. It's just like setting that moisturizer Lamina in place so that it's not extra sticky. But it is sticky initially, but then it goes away. And I have found, in compared to my former formula, the butter, it's less sticky by far than the former formula. So it's just about getting through that initial period and using this silk powder to kind of take it down a little bit of a notch, or makeup or sunscreen or something. But people have talked about that stickiness and that residue left over from a good moisturizer as being very much equivalent to a makeup primer. My clients that use makeup on a daily basis are saying that the way that their makeup just glides on is it's like a built-in makeup primer. It's like that it's just sort of built in. The makeup just glides right on over so beautifully on top of the skin, and it's all hydrated underneath it, just the way we like it. So thanks for that question, and we've got time to take more questions as well. So the question that just came through is, how will the person know if their skin is, so this is coming from a person who's had a lot of procedures, who has a lot of chemical peels, and there's been an inherent dehydration component that's just been built in over the last few weeks and months. As this, I know we're trying to get the skin to start absorbing water. And so I will say that the skin goes through a phase in the beginning. Now, if skin has been used to getting chemical peels regularly or exfoliated regularly, what happens in the beginning is that our skin, this type of skin, the word I want to use, it's defensive. It's somewhat crusty to a degree, and it's very defensive about letting anything into the skin, our skin, because it's so used to being hit with chemicals and acids. and in the onslaught of even the microdermabrasion session, like it's so used to bracing itself and kind of armoring itself in the midst of these procedures that it's developed a hypersensitivity and almost like this thin layer of skin cells that it just doesn't want to let anything in. And this is a defense mechanism. But what I want to say to this is that as your skin is taking in these really good hydrating components, the hyaluronic, the aloe vera that's in the hydrating gel, and it's getting used to taking in dermal nutrients, what happens is that it starts to soften and slowly absorb more and more and more over time. And those skin cells, eventually they exfoliate off because they're always exfoliating off. But we give it that extra bump of dermal nutrients to kind of like push those old skin cells on its way. And those new skin cells come to the surface. And the skin really does go through this phase of, it's very subtle, but it's very obvious to me as I'm working closely with skin the way that I do, that it softens. There's the little pores sometimes are just sort of scraped and inverted in the skin. And what happens is those pores are fluffed up and actually create the healthy opening that they were born to have, rather than being like shaved and scraped down. And there is this receptivity that comes back into our skin, just persisting with these this system of hydrating the skin, feeding the skin, and then not withholding oil, but really being generous with rebuilding the acid mantle of our skin and giving it this oil-rich moisturizer. And of course, Lamina is like the ultimate of that. It's by far the most intensely healing and rectifying to our barrier restoration as any product that I've ever known about. And the way that it does it is really special because it does it without leaving a ton of residue on the skin and a oil slick. It's like this very thin, elegant layer that just melds into the skin and traps all of that water. And it's so beautiful to watch this process happen, because there's this fluffing up of the skin and there's this relaxation and there's this positive blood flow that comes back into the skin, and this beautiful permeability that finds its way back into skin when it's given these steps. And it's like one of my favorite things to watch. And of course, what comes with this maximizing of our skin's hydration is this return of how our skin can just release on a daily basis. And that's the bigger goal. And I mean, so many things about why hydrated skin is what we want. But one of them, of course, we're plumping up fine lines and we're holding the pore canals open. We're allowing for our skin to become this release organ that it is. Like somehow along the way, we forgot that the skin is a release organ and it needs to be able to breathe and move and allow things to pass through. Our skin should be more of like a hallway rather than a storage unit, because of what's happening with this chronic dehydration that I'm seeing over and over and over again with new clients, is that there's this backing up of congestion in our skin. It doesn't have what it takes, that permeability, to just move a whitehead through. And just being able to have and release a whitehead is so important, because when that whitehead can't get out, it gets hard and trapped, and it stays in there for weeks and months and even years, and it becomes very complicated. So achieving this optimal hydration is just so vital with getting our skin current and up to date and in the moment of what's happening now with our skin, so that it can just be in present time and it doesn't have to hold old congestion. So thanks, that was an excellent question, and I'm going to see if there's any more questions. Okay, so this is a question. So the question is about skincare companies claiming that living in a big city is like, let's just say, for example, New York, takes a toll on the skin because of the air pollution. And yeah, I have a lot to say about this. Our world is toxic, I feel like, in two different ways. And there is internal toxicity and there is external environmental toxicity. And our bodies and our skin is constantly managing and dealing and coping with both of those things. And so this environmental element of pollution and the air that's just surrounding this, and that can go further into the water that we're drinking. But just to talk about air quality, because that's been such a big issue lately, not even in New York City. We've had all of this, the wildfires and all over California and Colorado have tremendously affected air quality. And so that's about our lungs, but it's also about our skin. And what I want to say about that is that skin that has the foundational health, this foundational health established, is in a better place to combat all factors, internal and external. And so skin that is optimally hydrated, getting dermal nutrients, and has barrier restoration in place is in this state where it's much more likely to be able to cope with whatever the stresses are. I know that skin that does not have a barrier in place and is dehydrated it's naked in a sense. It's like extra vulnerable. And so it's really important to put that barrier in place. And one of the biggest complaints that I just caught, that I just touched on, is like, well, there's a certain type of person that just doesn't like anything on their skin. And they're trained that way, and part of that is the skin industry's fault. We've accidentally have educated and informed clients that they shouldn't have any greasy feeling or no residue on their skin ever. And I want to just take all of that back and correct it and say, yes, you don't want toxic chemicals on your skin and you don't want toxic emulsifiers on your skin, but having really high quality lipids on your skin is ideal. And so having that in place, your question ties in really well with tonight's topic, because we can't control externally our environment all of the way. And so we're exposed to all sorts of stuff. However, skin that's hydrated, skin that's getting the dermal nutrients, dermal antioxidants are really important as well. Vitamin C powder, freshly mixed in, plays a huge role with helping our skin combat external toxicity. So that would be my answer to that, is just make sure that your skin has this like foundation to skin health, so that it is not extra vulnerable to environmental factors like that. So let's see what other questions we have. Okay, so this is a really good question about what happens if your skin is feeling dry in the middle of the day. Like, what do you do about that? Two things come to mind. Number one, You might not be using enough hydration and enough barrier restoration cream in the morning if your skin is really dry by midday. I would experiment with using more. And I will say that the thing to not do is, a lot of people think that they're going to hydrate their skin midday and they're going to mist with a hydrator. They leave it on their desk, they leave it in their car, and they give their skin this like hydrating mists throughout the day, thinking that they're hydrating it. And that has the opposite effect. So what that does is it tears down any barrier cream that you have in place. It destroys and kind of weakens the acid mantle so that more water is escaping. And so don't do that. That will help tremendously. Try using more serum, more moisturizer. And another simple thing to do is, I carry a little bit of the lamina with me. I have these little tiny containers that I keep them with in my car and in my purse, because I get really dry around my mouth because if I have lunch or if I'm drinking from a water bottle, the skin around my lips gets really dry because, of course, I'm like wiping my mouth. And so you can apply midday a little bit of the former face butter, the lamina, or your favorite moisturizer that's dense enough. Go ahead and just apply that in the middle of the day. And if you're somebody that likes that dewy, fresh look and it doesn't get in the way of your makeup, then that's great. Otherwise, I keep that special silk powder on hand to just do a quick dust over, so that my face has a little bit more of a matte finish. So yeah. Well, and you know what? I want to demonstrate the lamina, doing this for my people who are switching over. I want to just demo how to get the lamina to melt. You do have to work a little bit harder initially, but the time that it takes to set up on the skin is far less than the previous moisturizer. So the first thing is making sure that you have the shell to scrape it out. Some people miss that on their instruction card. So this is, you can see how thick this is, and you give it a couple good mashes. And then the trick is twisting your palms and making little baby circles. Sometimes you'll have to kind of mash it again. But what happens is that it completely liquefies. And then, of course, it re-solidifies on the skin with this beautiful, beautiful barrier. So you can see how gooey and workable that gets. But your hands do have to be mostly dry. Being warm helps. And then the twisting and baby circles is what gets that lamina just, where it just glides on the skin and traps that water in so beautifully. So we're coming up to our 30 minutes that we spent together deconstructing skin hydration. And I want to just remind people to get into your spam boxes. It seems like a lot of my newsletters are ending up in junk mail. Makes me so mad. So dig me out, whitelist me, because I am sending out coupons and just good information and fun stuff every 2 weeks with my newsletter. And of course, new clients can sign up on my website to get a 20% off coupon. And you can also get the PDF of my book, Relearning Skincare, The Story of Skin and the New Way. You can also go to YouTube and listen to the 90-minute audio. It's me reading it. I had such a fun time doing that. Poured my heart and story into that book, and so it's just a really fun thing to listen to, so that your skin IQ can go up. And I think we got it. I had some notes here to make sure we touched on everything, and I think we did. And I forgot to record this. So unfortunately, I will not be able to send out a recording, but I will do my best to post this on I'll leave it on my Facebook page. Maybe I can find a way to recapture a recording of this somehow another way. So thank you so much for coming and sharing your questions and asking me. And next week, we are going to be talking about the topic that we're going to address is talking about the importance and the balance between water and oil. And it's a little bit of a nuance that we got a head start on today. So thank you so much, and I'll see you next week.